And having said that too, we also need to bear in mind that yes, there may be problem in terms of implementation, but some of them have been implemented, and it's a continuous thing.
You want to share with us some of this?
Yeah, even having to get together to meet on this 21st something is part of it. Let me give you a very simple example. Now Africa is going, Nigeria is going. What is the template? What are we looking at? The first thing we are looking at is that we have a common interest in determining what we want. But that common interest we have different ways of approaching it. For instance, most problems that we have has been caused by developed countries. I tried to explain what you mean by Annex 1 countries, because we don't have most factories as they have, because most of these things have come in from industrial production and a host of other things. And secondly, we also need to bear in mind that a lot of all these issues also have what you call is knowledge-based technology. You also must have skill. You must have what it takes. Because we are short of this, especially in developing countries, it is the position of developing countries like Nigeria, an African position and G77, that we need to address this basic issue by ensuring that at least you give us funds which you can use and also provide the technology and also build capacity that could assist us in moving away from this process.
Exactly. And Uncle, I'm so glad you brought that point in, because the reality is that we did not create this problem. This problem was created by the industrialized West.
But we encourage them.
The carbonization of the atmosphere. Whether we encourage them or not, the problem would have continued anyway. Do you know that Nigeria's carbon footprint, that is the carbonization of atmosphere that Nigeria exhibits, even with our gas flaring, is not up to New York City in winter. So the problem is a Western world problem. But we, because of our geographic location, we stand to reap so much of the negative fallout of this problem. And I'm so glad that Uncle is part of the delegation that is going to Paris. And I just hope that Nigeria will now speak as the giant of Africa that she is. Okay. I hope that Nigeria will speak as the leader of Africa that she's supposed to be, and stand up for the African continent, which stands to be very negatively impacted if these people don't get it right and start to decarbonize.
I can tell you straight away, Desmond, that Nigeria is playing a very key role. We are looking at different thematic areas, including gender, including youth, and we are very well positioned.
Very good.
I mean, this is not just something that we are doing. I mean, I came in yesterday, my way again today. A lot of us have devoted our time, our effort in making sure that we are well positioned.
Yes.
And I also need to assure you that, at least in recent times, this is the first time that I know, and I believe I've been in this system for so long, that Nigeria will be part of the opening. I mean, you have a team that will be part of the opening process. And of course, you know, when you do negotiation, it's a total, we are there for, it's not a question of I leave at 12 midnight, or it's from tomorrow till we finish about the 12th. It's a full-time, 24 hours, 7 days.
I will sleep for you. I hope you have your coffee.
No, you say, how we sleep. It's, I mean, it's part of it.
Yeah.
But one of the things I believe that we need to really seek is, well, we know the problem in Paris. Pray for our soul that we go, we come back.
You will go and come back.
But the most important thing, which I think it's important, is that there is a concept of positioning, which Nigeria is part of within African
We'll
framework.
still come and talk about the positioning of Nigeria, because we've heard conferences where Nigeria is represented, and you know, all the delegates do is just be a part of it, and then for some time go shopping. We'll come back to that.
And the extra code.
Yes, let me come to Oluwatosin. He said that we are not part of those countries that have brought us to where we are now. And so we are going to this conference. What would you want people like Mr. Ferdinand to ask for on behalf of the country?
Going for negotiations, because like you said, it's usually you have Annex 1 countries and the Annex 2 countries, and we belong to the Annex 2 countries. The Annex 1 countries over the years, because of their carbon power, they've amassed so much wealth and influence. So when you come to negotiation, usually there's a power play, and they've always have the higher hand when they deal. But for Africa and some other countries, in order for us to have enough power to also negotiate, it has required us over the years to form blocks, come together, in a cooperation, so that you can get your desired need, of course, expectation. So our prayer to them, as Africa goes, is that there's a saying that Africa is one of the most vulnerable continents to climate change. Unfortunately, we're one of the least informed, least prepared, and we don't have the capacity to adapt to this threat. Like he said, and some other examples, people migrating from different places, the Fulani herdsmen, they come into places where they can get food for their animals. Even people who live in the coastal areas, there's fear that we're losing land. So if the same threat that we're facing happens in the West has enough capacity financially to quickly mobilize and respond. But we do not have that. So we need, there's a pool of fund, a mechanism where it's called climate finance, where it's some set of amount of money is supposed to be highlighted or set aside to support developing countries to adapt to this change. But that full of fund and the disbursement has not been very effective. And again, the plan is that it will phase out after 2020. So part of our demand this time is that pool of funds should be extended beyond that, because we don't have that capacity. So it forms one of our basic desire requirement at this COP21.
Let me, Mr. Ferdinand, he's talked about funds, but there's this other thing about putting a price on carbon pollution. How will this affect Nigeria?
Before we get to the issue of putting a price on carbon, I think let's first of all get one thing clear. What is Nigeria and Africa putting on the table? Because that is very important. The issue of carbon pricing, it's an exercise in how do you get to a stage of reducing the stress or the challenges of carbon dioxide that you have. Because all you are trying to say is that if I can reduce this, then of course I'm moving towards the total reduction or minimization of the effect of climate change or this. I believe the first thing that the Africa is putting together, of course Nigeria plays a key role within this concept. We work as a group. The first one is that we believe that there is a need for a collective and unified voice, which Africa is putting on the table. And of course, you have the African negotiators, you also have the African ministers of environment, and of course, you have the African head of state, where our president also will be very much involved. And our concept is that we are demanding for an ambitious, inclusive, fair, and robust treaty, because at the end of the meeting, we are hoping that there will be a treaty or an agreement, and our concept is that it should be based on the principles of common but differentiated responsibilities. Common, we have a common interest to minimize the challenges. And for us in Africa, which I will come back again, one of the things we are talking about is that we want adaptation. The second aspect is that to us, we believe that there must be a global understanding on the reduction of emission, and in this regard, African position is adaptation. We need to get ourselves, and that also means that we must have the fund, the climate fund, which is talking about. It must be available, it must be scalable, it must be something that is easily accessible. We also need the technology, we also need the human capital. Because unless you have the knowledge, unless you can build up skills, you may not be able to attract this issue. And of course, we also believe that in getting this done, human capital is key. The recent report of the UNDP on the Human Capital Report of 2014 talks about the concept of vulnerability.